Look at D. In D, we have xy minus 2y plus 5x minus 10. Now notice if we look at all four terms, they don't have anything in common between all four terms, which means we're just going to go based on size, which four terms means we're going to be doing grouping. So looking at the first two and grouping those together, what do they have in common? They both have a common factor of y. So I can pull out a y from both pieces. So if I pull out the y from both pieces, the leftovers that will go inside of the parentheses is the x minus 2. Then I can look at my second two pieces here and bring down my plus that's between them. What do the 5x and the 10 have in common? Well, the 5 and the 10 are both divisible by 5, so I can factor out a 5. Well, if I pull out the 5, I'll still have an x minus. Well, 5 will go into 10 2 times. Notice that this is perfect, though, because I do have a matching x minus 2. So I can pull out that matching x minus 2 with its parentheses. Then the leftovers will go inside of their own set of parentheses, which is a y plus 5. So that is my final answer, an x minus 2 times a y plus 5. Let's take a look at E. In E, we've got an 18m cubed n plus 3m squared n squared minus 6mn. And I see a lot of numbers and letters, so I'm thinking I might have a common factor. So let's go one thing at a time. Let's look at the numbers. We've got an 18, a 3, and a 6. 18, 3, and 6 are all divisible by 3, so I can pull out a greatest common factor of 3 at the very least. Now let's look at we've got an m cubed, an m squared, and an m. So all these pieces have at least an m, so I can also pull out an m. Now what else? I have an n squared, and an n. So at least all of these pieces have at least one n that I can pull out. So let's see what happens when I pull out this 3, m, and n. And let's see what will be left over to go inside of our parentheses. So 3 will go into 18 6 times. Pulling out one m still leaves me with 2 out of the 3. Pulling out the n means it'll be gone. Plus, dividing out the 3 means that'll be gone. Pulling out one of the m's still leaves me with an m. Pulling out one of the n's still leaves me with an n. Minus, 3 will go into 6 now 2 times. Pulling out the m means it's gone, n means it's gone, and that is it. Notice our leftovers don't have anything in common, so we are all done, and this is our final answer. Let's take a look at F. In F, we've got 40x minus 32y. Now, on the surface, this might look like there's nothing you can do because it's 2 terms, there's no squares, and there's no cubes. But it's very easy to forget the most basic thing that we always look for first. What do they have in common? And if you look at the 40 and the 32, they're both divisible by 8. So I can factor out a greatest common factor of just the number 8. Then whatever's left over will go inside of my parentheses for later. So factoring out an 8, or dividing out an 8 from the 40 will leave me with a 5x. Minus 8 will go into 32, 4, and we'll still have our y. And that is factoring. I did pull something out. I did factor out an 8. So the 8 did come out in front of our term, and so this isn't prime. I did something. I factored out an 8. Let's take a look at G. In G, we've got x cubed minus 8. Notice we have 2 pieces. They don't have anything in common, so I can't factor out a greatest common factor. So I'm going to go based on how many terms I have, which is 2 terms. It means I've either got squares or cubes. Now notice, because our exponent's divisible by 3 only, I am looking at cubes. Well, remember, cubes is our more complicated one. That's when we use our SOAP. That's also when we end up with our bigger pieces, where we get a binomial times a 3-piece part, which is a trinomial. But before I do anything, I need to figure out what has actually been cubed in each piece. Well, what is cubed in this first piece is an x, and what's cubed to get the 8 is a number 2. So I'll start out with my x and my 2. They stay the same in our first piece in our binomial. Then for my trinomial, when I go back, I have to go back to the x first. I square that first piece, which will give me an x squared. For the last piece of my trinomial, I have to square the last piece, so squaring the 2 will get me a 4. Actually, I have to do the math there. 2 squared is 4. And the hard part is always the middle piece. Remember, the middle piece is always taking your 2 pieces and multiplying them. So taking the x and the 2 and multiplying them. Well, 2 times x is going to be 2x. And then, how do I fill in my signs? Is remember when we use our SOAP, same, opposite, always, positive. So the first thing that we're going to do is the S, which says start out with the same. Well, I had a minus sign, so I'll stick with the same, another minus sign. The next one is the O, opposite, so that'll be a plus. The next one says AP, always positive or always a plus, so that one's always going to be a plus or a positive. And that's it. Remember, don't even bother trying to do AC method on that trinomial after SOAP. It will never happen, so we are done.